Welcome to Breaking the Mold, which is a celebration of the 200 years of the Brooklyn Museum's history. We have divided the exhibition up into 3 different chapters. The first one is Brooklyn Made, which celebrates the borough of Brooklyn's creativity and its industries. The second one is Building the Museum and its collections, which really focuses on the structure of the museum, the actual architecture, as well as the way the collections were formed up until the present day. And then the final chapter is Gifts of Art in honor of the 200th anniversary, which are recent gifts from various generous donors that are transformative works of art. These 3 exhibitions took the efforts of many different departments within the museum. All the curatorial departments participated, but also our libraries and archives. Please come with me, and some of my colleagues will join me in showing you some of the highlights in this exhibition.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth St. George, and today I'm going to take you through 2 of my absolutely favorite objects in the collection. Both deal with the Brooklyn Bridge as a subject. The folks responsible for the Brooklyn Bridge included Emily Warren Roebling and Washington Augustus Roebling, who were a married couple that served as engineers and essentially project managers for the production of the Brooklyn Bridge. And this tray we have here is actually commissioned by the 2 Roeblings on the event of their 25th wedding anniversary. And this was not only a celebration of their union, but of course this enormous creative achievement that was famous not only in New York City, but throughout the United States. You can imagine, just even by looking at the enormous detail of chasing and gilding, how it would have glistened under candlelight. The second work I want to share with you today is not only an icon of American art, but it's one of the most unique and famous pieces by the artist Georgia O'Keeffe. O'Keeffe lived in New York from 1907 to 1949. She was a frequent visitor to the borough of Brooklyn, crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, of course, on her way over. And she even had an exhibition here at the Brooklyn Museum in 1927 that was a retrospective, or I should say a survey of her work. It was painted in 1949, which was the last year she lived in New York City, and it was more than likely her last work before she left for permanently residing in New Mexico. So this is her capstone, a celebration of her time in New York City, and a love letter to the city itself.
Hello, my name is Pauline Vermeer. It is a pleasure for me today to talk about Coney Island in the photography collections, starting with this beautiful photo by Toni Velez. You can see Toni Velez, the photographer's daughter, running towards you, and you see her shadow on the boardwalk and the shadows of the benches and the lines, all of those lines. It's just a very beautiful, pure composition. There's an energy that comes from it that takes you immediately inside the moment. But it's also an interesting photograph because you don't quite know. I mean, this is the 90s, but it could be another time in the history of Coney Island, which is also the beauty of Coney Island, is how timeless it is. What's beautiful about this Coney Island collection, it includes photos by very well-known photographers such as Robert Frank, and lesser-known photographers, and photos from the 19th century to today, including the 1990s. And so you see the evolution of a place through photography. And there's something very special about seeing Coney Island evolving through the eyes of photographers for decades and over the last 150 years.
Hi, my name is Carla Forbes, and I'm really excited to be talking about this work by Nona Faustine. Nona Faustine was born in Brooklyn in 1977. She started primarily as a documentary photographer, but went on to build a more conceptual practice. In her series White Shoes, in over 40 self-portraits, she maps throughout all 5 boroughs in New York sites that are historically significant to the history of slavery here, starting in 1626 with the Dutch West India Company. This is one of the photographs in this series, specifically taken in Prospect Park at the Prospect Lefferts house. This house was built in 1783 by Peter Lefferts, and this family in particular was one of the largest slaveholding families in Brooklyn. Throughout the series, Faustine wears a pair of white pumps, kind of representative of the constraints and some of the assimilation that The history of slavery and colonialism has caused particularly to Black women. In this photograph, however, we see the only other pair of white shoes in the series, and it's really significant that they are children's shoes. In the context of chattel slavery, much of the time mothers were separated from their kids, and so these shoes can suggest an absenting of those children or just bring into question the relationship between a mother and her children in this context. I think it's really important that Faustine's work is included in this exhibition because the essence of White Shoes, it is telling the story of the history of Brooklyn, which was built off of enslaved labor, and tying it back to our contemporary. I think it's really important to keep in mind kind of the ground and the history that we are quite literally walking on. Unfortunately, Nona Faustine passed away in 2025, which I think makes the inclusion of this work all the more important.
Hello, my name is Megan Bill, and I'm very excited to talk to you today about the Tesa Kanya, which is a Chokwe snuff container. So this would have been made for elite members of the Chokwe Society, which is in what is now Angola, Zambia, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Chokwe rulers would have commissioned songye, who were wood carving artists, to make very elaborate containers for snuff, which was very finely ground tobacco. So a container like this would have been used in the Chokwe royal court, probably by rulers, but possibly also other elite members of society or dignitaries. So this particular container depicts a royal female ancestor, and she's holding her breast, which symbolizes nurturing the chiefdom. So this particular container showcases a number of visual, characteristic Chokwe styles, but it also showcases the influence of European art and design in Chokwe society beginning in the 16th century. So you can see that the chair she is sitting on is actually more of a traditional European style chair. Stuart Cullen was our curator of ethnology at the time, and he was actually tasked with building most of the museum's collections from the world's peoples. So in 1922, Cullen purchased roughly 900 works, mostly from Central Africa, from a dealer in Brussels, and this became one of the most significant acquisitions in the Brooklyn Museum's history, and the works acquired at that time kind of formed the backbone of what became the renowned collection of African art that the Brooklyn Museum stewards today. And so most of those objects would have been packaged up and crated to be sent from Brussels to Brooklyn, but Cullen chose this snuff container to take with him as a sort of ambassador object to showcase the fineness of this collection.
Hi, I'm Abigail Danziger. This is a French costume doll designed by the Italian designer Elsa Schiaparelli. It was one of 49 dolls that we received in 1949. They were one of many gifts from the French government at the end of World War II. They were expression of gratitude for the food and the fuel and the medicine that the American citizens had sent at the end of the war. This doll in particular, it has so many little details, everything from the feathers on her hat to her jewelry. It's pretty incredible. When the dolls first arrived at the Brooklyn Museum in 1949, they were on display in an exhibition called 2 Centuries of French Fashion. And this exhibition was held in a space that had recently opened called the Design Lab. And it was an innovative initiative for its time. It had workstations with scientific and industrial equipment, and designers with memberships could come and research the collections, work with the collections directly for inspiration. Over there you can see there are 2 textiles, and those textiles are examples of a collection piece and an artwork that was created from working with the collections in the Design Lab. It's just one of the many stories that are from the Brooklyn Museum's fascinating 200-year history.
We come upon this delightful vessel. It looks like you're going to drink from the mouth up there, but actually the wine was poured into the vessel and you drank from holes at the bottom of the shoes. Those are actually boots. These are called wine legs, and they were very rare. They were from the 1st century BCE, so they're over 2,000 years old, and they were made in northwestern, what is now Iran. This very playful vessel is one of our Brooklyn icons. And I think we chose it as an icon because it is so unusual, and when you approach it, first of all, you don't know what it's made out of. You also don't know what it's used for. It's a very distinctive, and it's also very rare. There are very few of these. There are less than 50 known in the world to have survived. It's really one of the most delightful objects in this exhibition. So here we have a new acquisition to the museum's collection. It is a portrait of an African man, probably painted in northern Italy around 1600. This person is portrayed with fine clothing that's been embroidered. He has a real personality. He's not subservient. He has a real presence. And so this is a wonderful representation of the presence of Africans within Europe at the time, but also it helps to expand the kinds of stories that we can tell at the Brooklyn Museum. We don't know what his role was, but he may have been a model for the artist, or it could have been part of a group portrait, or it could have been a single portrait. We don't know whether the painting has been cut down from a larger canvas. We will continue to study and make new observations, and maybe someday we'll be able to identify not only the artist, but also the person who it represents.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Gant. I'm excited to tell you about this wonderful installation piece, Untitled, by the artist Lauren Halsey. What's really exciting about Lauren's work is that she is really invested in presenting untold stories, particularly about lives of African Americans throughout Los Angeles. This particular piece relates a lot to the neighborhood of Watts, which is a historical African American community within Los Angeles, and was kind of known most famously and infamously for the riots that happened in the late 1960s because of police violence against the African American driver there at the time. This reference to a very little known school training African Americans to be professional photographers in the 1950s. People don't really know that that even existed decades ago, and so she really is a historian in that way, kind of mining local histories and legacies to kind of bring that to the fore. The sculpture itself is multidimensional. You really want to walk around it because, again, you've got text on the other side talking about Concerned Black Men of Los Angeles, again, another organization of community, gentlemen who want to support younger Black men. CDs, so also thinking about different kind of media over time and pop culture, the different nuances and connections about a neighborhood, a community, a group, and how they're all working together for the betterment of just society as a whole, really on a local level, but she's trying to show how much it impacts on a national and I think international level. This installation is by the artist Coco Fusco, and it's an incredible installation where the artist actually does a video kind of recording or reminiscing really of her, taking her mother's ashes back from New York, where Coco was born and raised, to Cuba, where her mother was from. And it is more than just a story talking about the journey and an artist kind of dealing with grief.
I was the one who had to take Mama's ashes back to Cuba.
Interspersed in the story that she's telling it is also narratives of kind of anonymous Cubans who have also tried to escape the country via boat, via makeshift rafts that they've made. The installation is made at an angle. We got tire tubes for the visitors to sit in. You are actually kind of creating the mimicry of if you were actually on that raft, if you were having to experience that, the waves slapping you in the face, the sun, sharks, the government trying to find you. So she is really trying to convey all that you can experience, trying to escape a country that you love, to go to a country that you don't know the language, but you're hoping, that you're praying you get there safely. Just really speaks to so many issues that we're grappling with today in the United States and across the globe, and hopefully our visitors will really connect with this work because it's a very powerful piece.
We are in the chapter called Gifts of Art, of Breaking the Mold, celebrating the gifts made to the museum over the past year or so. Philanthropy comes from the Greek word philanthropia, which means the love of humankind, and this is what we wanted to celebrate in this chapter. We hope you enjoyed the highlights of Breaking the Mold, and we hope to see you here soon.